Hi, everyone. This is Lauren Baker, founder of Search Engine Journal. Welcome to today's special SEJ webinar supported by our partners at Channable. Today, we have an expert panel, and we're going to be talking about Google Shopping ad strategies and just really uncovering a lot of the secrets and tactics that you should be utilizing with Google Shopping. Ben, Brian, and Joshua, let me give you guys a chance just to introduce yourselves really quickly, and then I'll go over some housekeeping for our attendees.
Awesome. Thanks so much for hosting us here. Excited to be here with Brian and Josh. My name is Ben Riggle. I'm the managing director of Channable here in North America. And Channable helps organizations scale across markets and marketplaces. And we do that by really removing the complexity in your product data and your feeds as well. So really excited to talk to you today about Google Shopping and PMax and some of the advanced strategies that you can use to take back control here.
Love it. I'll go next. I'm Brian Butler. I am the CEO of SmartTech. We are a marketing technology consultancy, and we do partner with Channable. We actually represent Channable in a lot of different cases as far as feed optimization, feed management. We work with clients to make sure their feeds are getting optimized to the best degree possible. And then through that, we actually also, I work as a VP of sales and marketing for an enterprise ad agency called SearchLogic. And SearchLogic uses SmartTech and Channable for our clients and maximizing the data feeds and getting their e-commerce into a really good spot. That's myself. Go ahead and I'll move you on to Josh.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks everybody for having me here. It's great to be on the panel with you guys talking about these things today. My name is Josh. I'm the director of e-commerce and marketing for Meslon. Meslon, we specialize in men's luxury shoes, really here to emphasize the craftsmanship of our shoes as well as, the quality. But really here just to talk about the experiences we've had as a brand with Google as a whole, as well as some things we've encountered with Channable. But really excited to be here. Thank you, everybody, and look forward to speaking more.
Appreciate you.
Awesome. Well, it's great to have all of you on. Just before we get started with the presentation, like I promised, a little bit of housekeeping. So first, to answer a lot of the questions that we get coming in, yes, there will be a video of today's webinar made available to all attendees and registrants, along with a copy of the deck as well. With the video and the deck, you'll also notice that there's a handouts area at the top of the webinar panel. And in that area, there's a direct link to a Merchant Center Next blog post, as well as how to create the best Google Shopping campaigns white paper provided by Channable as well. We'll be launching 2 polls during the presentation. So please, everyone, go ahead and vote and answer the polls. It really helps our experts craft their presentation and gives them some insights on your experience in Google Shopping. And then just to get the chat area going, if everyone could just chime in and just type in where you're coming in from right now, whether it's a city across the US, internationally, wherever it may be. We really like to get everyone going on and chiming in about in the chat. And then also you'll notice at the bottom of your screen, you should see some smiley face, hearts, laughing emojis, raise the roof, et cetera, et cetera. Go ahead and tap those because we'd like to make sure those are working as well. Everything seems to be going extraordinary perfect. So thank you so much. After the presentation today, after the expert panel, we will be having 2 different options for you. One will be a breakout room. We'll launch that via a pop-up where you can go ahead and join and learn more about Google Shopping ads with Channable. And then the second will be a Q&A. And also just to let you know, as our expert panelists are presenting and educating you all on everything on the Google Shopping side, feel free to ask questions in the Q&A box. We will then take some of the best questions and utilize them during the Q&A session itself. And since this is a pretty crowded room today, I'm going to go ahead and turn my camera off and let you all get started with today's panel.
Awesome. Thank you, Lauren. We have a lot of people from all over the world on here. We've got people
no
from
kidding.
Australia, Asia, everywhere. So some of you are up late watching this, so we appreciate it as well. So we'll get kicked off. And really interested again on the chats. As you guys hear anything that you're interested in, please chime in. We'll be asking for some feedback and some guidance as well, because it looks like we got a lot of experts globally here as well. So what we're going to do today is it's going to be a little bit of an informal discussion. We'll have some slides to go along with it, but this is the agenda. Our goal here is that everyone can walk away with one or two key takeaways that you can take, make your job easier, help impact your business as well. I think Brian and Josh are the people to help you do that as well. So we're going to go over at a macro where we are with Google Shopping. And then we'll go into more tactical things around strategic insights for Google Merchant Center, measuring success there, and then some specific tactical ways that you can get better results across Google on PMax specifically. And then really excited for Josh and Brian to talk in depth about some of the things that they've done to really optimize Mezlon's digital experience and really drive their business forward as well. So you saw all of us. Here's our names written out. Reach out to us on LinkedIn. Looking forward to connecting. Brian, one of the things I think you put together here is just really overview of Google shopping landscape. It's no secret, right? It's the biggest retail search ad spend in the US. It's the biggest network here. But would love to hear a little bit about kind of the macro experience you've seen on shopping and some of the things that you're focused on now.
So the shopping has become really a mandatory channel for any of our e-commerce brands. I would say it's one of those channels that has a lot of indirect impact as well. We have a lot of clients where Google Shopping will specifically drive last click touch attribution, but we also see a lot of brand lift and a lot of lift on direct. So we've had tests where we've done, shopping for 6 months. We pause all the shopping campaigns and we actually watch direct or organic or other channels and how they react to the shopping not being there. And yes, obviously when you do that, you're going to lose direct attribution from people not being able to click on the shopping ads. But if you notice your attribution on direct and organic, you actually see a decline there as well. And a lot of that is because shopping takes up so much inventory on the SERP that it just is one of those things where if you're not there, you're missing out on a valuable brand impression that you just can't really get from an organic, mostly because the view and how the pricing shows and the visuals, it's just one of those things where you get to take advantage of that visual retail space.
Excellent. Yeah. So we're seeing that impact across the board where, it's not just what you can directly attribute, but, the overall experience is significantly impacted just because of the scale that they hold as well.
Yeah, and the new features with how they're representing pricing. So when there's discounts, when there's sales, they're very, very outlandish. They look big, and so you can get a really good visible, footprint on there with your brand, which is really nice. And a lot of people just don't realize that the click-through rate for your Google Shopping ads may not be huge. It's 0.86 is a standard default. But you're also not considering the fact that you're getting that brand impression that you wouldn't otherwise be getting as well.
Got it. Makes sense. Do you have any guidance on kind of measuring that or for people to kind of try to understand what more or less, I guess, that incrementality might be?
I mean, what you can do is incrementality testing and really do like run a week, don't run a week, run a week, don't run a week to understand what the impact looks like. We call it the halo effect when we do our measurement. And typically what we try to measure in our business is called basically it's like a macro ROAS or an all media ROAS. So we actually look at the overall spend from all channels divided by the total revenue. And then from there, we try to understand what the overarching ROAS is for everything. And the bad thing about that is when, email suffers or organic is having a hard week, then it lowers the overall numbers. But, it's one of those situations where rising tides raise all ships. And so we look at macros because we want to understand the overall scale of the business, and understanding that can make a huge difference in whether you're actually seeing the success. So if you're doing incrementality testing and you pause your shopping campaigns for a week and then compare it to when you had it running, what does your all media look like? Now, the one challenge with that is you do have latent conversions with Google where someone will click on an ad and then 7 or 8 days later, or even 10 days later, they'll come back and convert. So you do have to give it enough time to understand if the incrementality is actually measuring correctly. But I would say leveraging your all media ROAS, looking at the overarching revenue, and then adjusting based on what your perception is once you do that test. That's really where you can get some of your gains and insights. And then also looking at your other channels, does your lift happen on direct? Does your lift happen on organic? And typically what you're going to find is that not having Google Shopping there, you're going to miss out on some opportunities you otherwise would have had.
Okay. Awesome. So we know, Google Shopping is kind of a must-have for an e-commerce brand today, and I think there's some great insights there on how to optimize for that. Google spent a lot of time, trying to help companies optimize their own campaigns, and a lot of that trying to put it on autopilot as well, for the most part. One of those is Merchant Center Next. So we want to talk a little bit about that, but before we talk to that, I just wanted to get a poll from the audience on how many have actually migrated over to Google Merchant Center Next yet, or maybe are just waiting for that. So we'll give you some time to respond and then talk a little bit about that here.
So I've started the poll. I see there's people responding already. It's going to take a few seconds to have them come in. And then I'll go ahead and share the results once we hit a certain amount. So
Awesome.
Have you moved over to Google Merchant Center Next yet?
Do you know what it is even?
Yeah, we should talk about that as well.
We
should have put that as an option. What's that?
A few more seconds, I'm going to share the results because I don't want to skew the results by sharing. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Looks like we've had about half of attendees answer. So Here we go.
No. Okay.
Wow. All right. So overwhelmingly no as well. Does that surprise you, Brian?
Not too bad. It is an automatic transition. And so because the users can't necessarily adjust it, I think there's an element of anonymity there that they won't have the ability to like click a button or anything. So that is a little surprising that Google hasn't pushed it out to more clients. That is kind of surprising as far as just the lack of adaptation yet.
Okay. And as we continue, those of you who responded yes, maybe just put in the chat, some things that, okay, you got somebody who says it's not available yet. Most of the clients don't know it's there. So yeah, we'd love to hear, maybe why you didn't migrate, or if you have migrated, maybe some benefits you're seeing while we chat through it as well. But if we can put the slides back up, we can talk through some of the things that Google Merchant Center Next is providing. And maybe we should have invited a Google rep on here because it sounds like there's some conversion they could do here to Merchant Center Next.
Wouldn't have been a bad idea.
Yeah. Great. So so Merchant Center Next is being pushed out. There's no forced migration, as you guys may know. There's basically 6 things that we've seen them change here. We won't go through this list in detail here, but Brian, I know when we talked, one of the things that you were kind of excited about and playing around with was the product studio and some of the generative AI. So would love to hear kind of your thoughts on that, what it brings to the table, and maybe some of the things that you'll still have to do manually or automate with other tools.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think let me talk about, I guess, a little bit of what new Google Merchant Center Next even is. There's probably some need for that, it seems like. And then we can go into some of the benefits that you're going to get from it and some of the challenges. And I do want to show the product studio because that's pretty cool. So basically, Google Merchant Center Next is essentially the next iteration of Google Merchant Center. You are correct. A lot of people don't have it available to them yet. It will be an auto update. I've been working in Merchant Center for about 16 years. And this is one of the most up-to-date or most dramatic changes to the interface that we've seen pretty much ever. Now, it has been a simplified user interface, so it's not quite as complex. They've taken a lot of the settings that you're used to seeing, maybe in the settings window, and moved it out into the overall dashboard, which is really interesting. The other thing that I think is going to be really big for a lot of small brands, people who have Shopify, people who are using the Content API, it does now have the ability to do an automatic product feed detection. Product feeds have been somewhat the bane of my existence for 15 years. I've been fortunate enough to find partners like Channable that allow me to use data feeds in a way that allows us to manipulate it to our advantage. But for a lot of small clients who don't have a support team, or they don't have anybody on their staff that's going to really be able to run that Merchant Center feed, the auto detection is going to be super valuable because it's going to help you understand if new products come available, product availability, pricing, some of those elements that are going to be really important for a small business to be able to help manage and maintain. The other thing is direct product editing. So there's a lot of people who are not going to want to change their website title to be optimizable for shopping, right? It doesn't make a lot of sense. Like if you think about Air Jordans, You're never going to put Air Jordan size 9, patina leather as your title inside your website. It's going to look horrible. It's going to be a bad product title. But you do want to do that when you're looking at optimizing your shopping feed, because Google's going to look for those titles to optimize and get you the right keywords, because there is no other keyword targeting otherwise, right? So you really have to use the data feed to your best to create your best example. The direct editing is going to be huge, because when you get the ability to go in there, if you have a title that you need to update, or if you have a description that you need to modify, you have the ability to do that within the report or the Merchant Center Next interface. You can open up the product instance and you can make some minor edits. Now, the positive of that is you have some control over it. The downside is you have control over it. So if you don't know what you're doing, you could modify it and you don't know what benefit it's going to have. I'd also say you're also going to be stuck with this working at scale. If you're having 1,000 products or even 100 SKUs that you're trying to edit, it's going to be a really time consuming. And in those kind of situations, that's where you're really making a lot of opportunity to find a channelable style tool to feed manipulate and make bulk changes in time. So I would kind of consider Google Merchant Center Next like a really good step in the right direction for baby brands who are doing under 100 SKUs and they want to get on Google Shopping because they've never been able to do it before, and they want some automation. But what it's not going to do is it's not going to help you with Facebook. It's not going to help you with Merchant Center, Microsoft. It's not going to help you with Amazon. So it is kind of a one-stop editing tool. So I would be mindful of that, right? It's going to be something that's beneficial, but you have a lot of opportunities to do more if you go with a feed management type of service. The Product Studio, I think, is actually going to be really cool. And I'll share my screen real quick so everyone can see this, because it is kind of a cool update here. Let me see, show my window. Let's see here. So can you see the Product Studio on the screen?
Yeah, we got it.
So there's a couple of really cool things under the Product Studio that you can do. And it's really funny because Google tells us that they want us to basically keep the background white and just very nondescript. But then they bring out this feature that basically helps you create a background. So it's really kind of funny that Google is using this. But what you can do here is generate a scene. You can select a specific product from within here. So I'm going to pick these really pretty red slip-ons. If you don't know yet, Meslin has some of the best luxury designer shoes you can get. These things are incredible. They feel amazing. They fit comfortably. And all of it is, handmade out in Spain. So it's ridiculous quality. So once you get in here, you can say, what do I want this to be? It's a red slip-on loafer, right? And then you can choose the scene that you want to have this put into. So I like the classic look of the marble or the wood top. For the sake of experience or practice, I'll go after the concrete surface. And what it does is it creates a GTP that actually, breaks down what this scene would look like. And then from there, you can actually watch it create it. There is a version history, so you can actually apply this. And what's nice about it is you do have the ability to save this to your Merchant Center. So, these are some okay ones. I don't mind some of the visuals here. This is kind of bad. Let me try a different scene. Maybe we can look at a better one. Let's try some sand dunes, because of course you're going to wear your slip-ons to the sand, right? That makes perfect sense. So as you update that, it does update the screen descriptor. And I think for a lot of brands who are looking to stand out, this is going to be pretty groundbreaking. The main reason is when you upload images to Google, you can't upload them with a background, right? Google doesn't want you to upload background images. They really want you to focus your product line, right? And so you can apply one of these images if you like it, to the entirety of that product line just by going to Add to Merchant Center. You can regenerate the scene if you don't like it. But there's a lot of really cool functions here you can see that'll give you a good, I'd say an eye-catching or a pop-out product inside of your merchant feed, which is really handy. And just for continuity, you can see blue loafer on cement, red loafer, slip-on loafer on marble, as you can see here.
Okay. Yeah, so really powerful tool there, which I think will help, as you mentioned, a lot of use cases But I don't know about wearing the shoes in the sand dunes.
I know. Josh,
feel like-
I'm going to take a drink of tea real quick. As a brand, how do you feel about the AI generative images supporting your product?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think it offers a lot of potential for some brands. Maybe for us, again, sand and wearing your slip-ons in the sand dunes isn't the best choice, but there definitely is a lot of potential for, different possibilities depending on what your product is. Looking at, I think it was some type of lotion or whatever the example was on those backgrounds, you can definitely create some really compelling content for your feed. Just generating. So very, very, I agree with you, Brian. Very incredible tool.
Do you think you get some pushback on the brand side for people who might be a little bit hesitant to use generative AI?
Yeah, probably a little bit. I think that's kind of the feeling across the board for AI. But the way I've been explaining to our team internally is, it's a great tool if it can apply to our situation. Definitely can help out in a lot of situations where you may need to be a little more creative. Maybe you're looking for new adaptations of concepts. Definitely some potential there. I wouldn't recommend just shutting it out completely. Everybody has their hesitations going forward about new tools, new things, but really, can offer some potential if the situation's right.
Yeah, makes sense. And I think just to backtrack a little bit, Brian, we had a question that came in on the Q&A from Darlene talking about making the changes you were describing in the product feed to make that more beneficial for SEO. So I don't know if you want to comment on that.
More beneficial for SEO. So SEO is going to be really derivative of what's on your website, not what's in a data feed. And so I think it's very, very important, and hopefully I'm answering the question correctly. It's very important to optimize your website for SEO, not your feed, and optimize your data feed for Google to optimize it for the correct keywords and the direct descriptions. But I think that's why it's really important that you're not making somewhat ridiculous titles in your actual website, because it can really hurt your SEO because it can be seen as keyword spammy. And it also just doesn't look good as a brand, right? So I would say, you do want to make sure that you're not observing Google data feeds as an organic tool. And you want to make sure you're optimizing it predominantly through, what you're optimizing there. Now it says the feed will impact organic shopping results. That is true. You do want to make sure you're optimizing for the free listings. That is true. But you're still optimizing your feed basically for whatever you want Google to understand, right? So whether it's organic free listing or whether it's a paid listing, you have to tell Google what your keywords are, what your description is, and you have to make sure they understand what your product looks like. And we'll get into more of that in a couple of their slides. I have some examples. But you are correct. It will impact the free listings for Google Shopping, but it won't impact the organic search necessarily, just the free listings, which are in a way organic, but they're not necessarily as in control of what you would be, right? You can't control it with your website. You control that with the feed. So there's a little bit of a different thing.
Great clarification. We're also getting some questions on the product studio. We'll probably have to defer you to your Google rep or the Google website to answer some of those in terms of how it works and whatnot. And we see you, John. But I guess Google's rolling this out regardless. But it's one of those things where early adopters maybe will see some uptick as well, and then they'll probably refine the tool.
And also to answer John's question, you can't. It's not recommended best practice to upload an image to your shopping feed that has a background. That's the most important thing to pull out from that. I don't care how pretty your product photography is. You can't have a background in the image. It's meant to be a white static background, right? So this is the only way Google's allowing you to follow their best practices and have a background image. That's probably the most important takeaway from that.
Great. Okay. So as we move on and keep talking about Merchant Center and some of the changes, one of the things that we always hear about is what's changed on the performance side. How do you measure what's happening? Google's making some significant changes here that are probably worth talking through so that people can start preparing for them as well.
So I would say the biggest thing we're seeing from a performance standpoint is a little bit more transparency. I find that the reporting options inside of Merchant Center Next are a lot more paint by numbers than they were before. You can actually include product titles, product descriptions. You can add, custom label 1, 2, 3, and 4. You can add product hierarchy. So whether it is a product category that starts as a shoe and goes down to a slip-on, you can actually see performance by that. The other thing is the ability to understand competitive pricing. So it looks at your competitive nature and says, how competitive are you versus your competition? One of the cool things about this is if you end up using a Channable style tool, Channable has a really great tool that allows you to understand the price and what your comparison to your competitors are in the market. And then it can update your price within a parameter that looks like, you give it a ratio. For example, I only want to update my price this high or this low, and it won't go beyond that threshold. That way, as the system starts seeing the pricing competitiveness change, you can dynamically change your pricing within that landscape, and it won't go outside of a certain threshold. With Google, you now have a competition pricing that allows you to at least get a better understanding of whether you are in the right realm for pricing for your product, or if you are just completely pricing yourself out of the market. Because unfortunately, Google Shopping is somewhat of a race to the bottom. The people who have the best pricing or have the best value proposition are typically going to be the ones who end up getting preferred visibility and also the clicks that come through as well, which is really important. The demand, looking at also understanding your free listings versus your paid listings. How much visibility do you have in the free listings versus the paid listings? Those visibility points right now are a lot more transparent than they used to be with the old system, which I think is really great.
Okay, got it. Anything to look out for here that as you're migrating that you might be missing that you noticed, or?
Not really missing. I would say the biggest thing is don't get confused about where the new data feeds are. The data sources has been moved up to the top right in the settings. That's a little bit confusing. The overall viewpoints of what you get are pretty similar. I like the interface change. When you look at the differences between the two, I find that you're going to be not as confused as to where to go to find what you're looking for, especially now they have the performance metrics and the dashboards as an isolated kind of area.
Okay. Awesome.
A lot of people go to the free listings. It's actually a really, really important part of the business. I can tell you without sharing my screen, so I'm not showing specific numbers, because I want to be respectful. For one of our clients, and again, I'll use no names just for autonomy. Our ads produced in the last 28 days 13,000 clicks. Our free listings produced 305 clicks. And so depending on what your products you're looking at, you can actually get a fair amount of traffic. As another example, for the last 90-day period for a client of ours, we had 1,000 clicks from the free listings versus 54,000 clicks from the ads. So it's not anywhere near the volume that you have with a paid listing, right? But it is something where you get the ability to have some free traffic that you wouldn't get otherwise. Great.
Thank you. And as we move on, I guess one more question before we get to the next topic is any comments on the accuracy of the Merchant Center conversion tracking that you're seeing?
I don't know what you mean by Merchant Center conversion tracking, because your conversion tracking should be done through either Google Tag Manager, if you're on Shopify, through your Shopify plugin, same with your other vendors. That's where your accuracy as far as your conversion tracking is going to come in. I do think if you have the service where you can buy on Google, there's going to be accuracy within that, because you're actually ordering from Google. There's the buy now button within Google, and that's kind of like the Google, paid listing support. That may be what you're talking about, but otherwise I think you're using, typically the platform itself is going to have those conversion tracking accuracies.
Okay.
Yeah, digital products work as well. Obviously, digital products are not going to be near as pretty because you can't have the picture of them, like a white paper, right? Or like an ebook. You're going to have a very static kind of image of a cover image, but you can use digital products as well as physical products.
Yeah, absolutely. And Mohammed, good question. That's something we're actually going to get to in the next portion as well, is to talk a little bit about some of the discrepancies you see in those types of campaigns as well. And just before we get there, on the audience targeting side, so obviously Google's done a big push to get first-party data and really be more targeted. You can see everything from including client list, excluding client list. I was listening yesterday, and now there's the IP exclusion that you'll be able to use. So really a lot of settings to really get you honed in on a customer list. But Brian, I know you've got a lot of experience here and you have a couple best practices to share when you start thinking about this thing. Would love to hear that as well.
Sure. I'll use this opportunity also just to remind everyone, third-party cookie apocalypse, whatever they call it, is on its way. If you guys haven't engaged with enhanced conversions yet, you're missing out on a huge opportunity. You're going to be seeing between 20 to 30% of your conversions are going to be no longer able to be tracked within Google Ads without the ability to do enhanced conversions. And for those of you who don't know, enhanced conversions is essentially you voluntarily passing back your client's hashed PII, so your phone number and your email address, back to Google through either Tag Manager or through an automatic detection on the thank you page. And that first party data passes back into Google so they can go, oh, this user is logged in. They just bought on a Safari browser, but because you gave us their email, we can see they were logged into Google, and now we can attribute that conversion back to you. Just like Facebook and the conversion API, it's really, really important that you guys get enhanced conversion set up because it's going to be a dramatic change. Luckily, most of the systems like Shopify have some direct connections where those are already being connected in, and that data is being shared dynamically, which is great. If you have any questions, we do have the ability to support people on that, but it is a really important aspect. Going back to that, the CRM that you can import, you now have the ability to do a couple of different things for audience targeting that'll improve your ability to bid more dynamically. And we do recommend this for most clients. One, make sure that you're turning on your brand verification. Verify your brand. Because if you don't, you get a lot of missed opportunities to optimize either for or against your brand. For example, you may have certain traffic that you want to drive for branded search that you want to exclude your brand on. And you have others you don't want to search for branded search, right? Having your brand verified will allow you to list your brand as a valuable audience to basically exclude or include. The other thing is making sure that you're using your CRM list for customer match. Google has the ability now to say, all right, these are your clients. We want to exclude these clients from this campaign and only optimize towards new clients. So if you're looking for net new users, having your audience list exclude your client list is a way where you can really optimize to make sure that you're not getting in front of repeat clients. Now, yes, there's always a value in getting your data set up in a way where you can go after your current client list to upsell or to re-engage. But for a net new audience, when you're looking for capturing a brand new client, you don't want to have that necessarily. And Google now gives you the ability to really make sure you're kind of excluding those current clients and optimizing towards new clients only, which for Meslin, we have done a lot with, and it's been really, really beneficial for us understanding how to get in front of that net new client. And keeping your CRM list, if you have Klaviyo, HubSpot, one of those email service providers, making sure that your API connection is current and you're getting that list continually synced back in so that you can make sure that is an up-to-date list.
Excellent. Yeah, and we're getting some questions that are coming in on this as well. But I think that's a good time to transition because some of these questions are can kind of get wrapped into this, which is a lot of questions about like how to execute these campaigns and what's the proper format to execute them, either on shopping ads or Performance Max. And so what we try to do here was kind of bring out some differentiation here that hopefully answers some of the questions here. But Brian, maybe walk us through kind of where you see the different use cases for shopping versus PMax, and maybe what companies should be on the lookout in terms of maybe even mixing some of this up in their own campaigns.
To Espen's question about the fixing your tracking so your cookies are first party, that's not necessarily something that the average consumer is going to know how to do. I don't necessarily think that there are ways where you can set up Google's Pixel to be set up as a first party cookie. And I think that's really where you're going to run into the challenge, is making sure that Google sees that event at the point of purchase. And if someone opts out of tracking, they're not going to have that, right? And yeah, there are ways you can use tools like Triple Whale that have first party cookies that they track, but they're not connected to Google, right? Google has certain restrictions and requirements that it needs and requires in order to have those kind of details in play. They're also held to a lot higher standard because of GDPR. So there's a lot of privacy stuff that they're going to be fighting you on trying to implement their third-party pixel as a first-party pixel. Now, again, Triple Whale is a great way to do that, where you have your own pixel service that is first-party, but it's not going to educate and train the algorithm like the Google pixels are going to do. So just be mindful of that. So breaking out your traffic. So there's a couple of things to think about when building shopping ads versus PMax. I will say I have been working with Google since 2007. I've never been as hesitant to just trust Google. I find oftentimes as an agency, what we do for our clients is to act within our client's best interest and not necessarily just trust that Google's going to have our client's best interest in mind. So we like to advise and consult to make sure that our clients understand the risks and the rewards of doing certain tactics. And so we will definitely leverage PMax, we'll leverage shopping ads, and we'll try to understand where we're getting the benefit. With PMax, the real benefit you get is the ability to compartmentalize your products in a way where your asset groups are broken out by product. You can have product-specific images, product-specific videos. You can have your videos be very specific to that product line. So if you did a UGC promoting this product, your asset group and a PMax campaign can have that video in it, right? Whereas a video for a shopping campaign, for example, you're not going to have the same inventory, so you're not going to be able to leverage that as much. I'd say one of the challenges that we have with shopping ads versus PMax is if you're bidding too low, we find PMax oftentimes will show you on display traffic more often than the actual shopping ads. And especially if you're running, a search campaign, a shopping campaign, and a PMax campaign, what's going to happen is PMax is going to take second fiddle to that search campaign and that shopping campaign. So you don't want to run the same product SKUs on a PMax as you do on shopping ad. It's not going to work. One of the two is going to get basically deprecated, and the other is not going to perform. So I usually test one or the other, look at what your conversion rate is on PMax, and then you may find that your results are okay. We've had really good, even with Meslin, we've had really good results in PMax. But what we tend to find is that our brand starts having issues because we don't show in the shopping campaign area as much if we're not bidding aggressively enough. So the challenges that we found have been really directly tied to whether we want to expedite our shopping visibility or our display visibility, because there's no way on PMax to say only show on shopping or to prioritize shopping. So we have done certain tests where we'll take certain SKUs, run certain SKUs on PMax, run other SKUs on shopping. And you have to ensure those SKUs do not overlap, because if they do, Google will not serve them in tandem. The other challenge you can work on is understanding whether demand gen is going to be better for you from a display and visibility standard versus PMax, right? So we've had some opportunities where we've gone back to a shopping campaign and using priority levels to say, all right, we want certain tiers of products. So, Meslin has a lot of products and they're all very expensive. Some of them are not less expensive, but they're all high quality. So you have a good tier of $200 to $500 products to $1,000 products to $2,000 products. So we try to make sure that with shopping ads, we try to tier those products into different feed areas so that as we are optimizing, we can tell Google these products are more important. I can bid for a different ROAS for these products. I have more margin on these products. These products don't have that margin. And I can do that in a way with shopping ads where I can then see the keywords that are populating. I can be a little bit more aggressive as to what I'm bidding. And then I can run a discovery campaign to get the top of funnel visibility benefits that you get from PMax. But one thing I will say in that is you can test it. You can optimize and then run it correctly. There are certain situations where PMax works great. We find PMax is really good or good for e-commerce. It's bad for lead gen unless you have a value associated with that lead. So PMax can be very hit or miss. The quality of the traffic you get on PMax can be very hit or miss.
Great.
And again, losing that brand visibility can be a big challenge.
Yeah, we've got some good comments coming in as well. So I think good chance to talk a little bit more about PMax. So I guess let's talk about that. And you mentioned some specific advanced use cases. So I think Google's come a long way in moving from that black box as we just got in the comments to trying to provide a little bit more control. But I was listening into one of the Ask the Expert sessions yesterday, and one of the questions came up and said, "Hey, are we going to get more portfolio bidding or portfolio bidding options and shared budget on PMax?" And it was quote unquote not on the roadmap, right? So you've got to find some other ways to gain that control as well. And so kind of what we have seen is that it's kind of at the end of that feed only PMax to where now the new PMax strategy is to do what you're just talking about. There is to think about your products in different campaign structures. And, even Google, when they were pressed on this, said that, hey, the best thing you can do is try to, break out the campaigns with different goals and split those into multiple campaigns as well. So it's aligned with what they're trying to drive as much volume through PMax as possible and control the bidding. But there is an opportunity for people to take that control back. And what we've seen is that you can segment products by performance. You can then create theme-based asset groups there, and also create highly relevant assets at scale that are really going to help you with your ad strength as well. And we actually rolled this out. We are a Dutch company, so we had a home and garden retailer in the Netherlands. And so for those of you who can read Dutch at the top, you can translate in the comments for everybody. But it's garden furniture, garden chairs, and stools. And what this company had was they had subcategories. So what we're looking at here is one of the 620 subcategories they had high focus garden chairs, and they used that as their campaign, and they had a specific campaign goals attached to that, and then they dropped into asset groups and campaigns from there. So they were able to really take one subcategory, make over 3,000 asset groups out of that, and we're able to control at the campaign level what they were bidding towards. And in Chanable, we automate that for our clients. So you can use rules to automate where your products appear and do that. There's also scripts you can do if you want to do it a little bit more manually. That's available as well. But the key here is that you could do this at scale. You can take back a little bit more control, and you can bid to your business outcomes. And then it also helps you on the asset side, because one of the other things that came out was that there's a huge focus on PMax on ad strength, and when you look at ad strength, you have images, you have videos, you have headlines, and you have descriptions, and the more that is filled out, and the higher quality that is, the higher your ad strength is going to be, and that's going to allow you to unlock more inventory on PMax. Now, obviously, you have to see if that inventory is converting or whatnot, but we do see Google's own data says that you get 6% higher conversions when you have that excellent strength. Ad strength as well. And the only way to really get to that standard is to have a lot of assets put in the right place that are high quality.
Yeah, and this is a really good visual for that too. And I think one of the big benefits about this is the fact that you can now have, it's not really keyword targeting because that's not really what it is, but you can have like search themes that you can add to PMax asset groups now. You didn't have that before. Exactly.
Yeah. So there's more control you have. I think, you give Google credit for allowing that control, but, it does take a little bit more work to unlock some of that value as well. So we'll go to the next poll. Well, hopefully Brian catches his breath here as well. One of the ways that I think Brian has talked about is just using a feed management platform like Chanable to help optimize a lot of this. So we're putting the poll up here just to see, of the people here, are you currently using a feed management platform specific here for Google Shopping and PMax, or maybe even some other channels?
So the poll has started. I have a few responses in. Once we get, we're almost at a quarter of attendees have responded. So go ahead, and if you haven't, go ahead and respond now. And the results are quite interesting. So I'm going to share them in a few seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, sharing the responses.
Nice. So good grouping there. So it does seem like a lot of companies, a lot of individuals using automation and optimization techniques, which is great. But I want to hand the stage over to Brian and Josh specifically to talk a little bit about what your journey at Meslon, how you optimized and some of the results you got, and share that with the team.
Yeah, absolutely. There's some really good questions in here too, actually.
Yeah.
I know we'll get into more of these in the Q&A. So John,
We only have 15
Todd,
minutes
and Rand.
left, so you might have to kind of pick what we answer and how much we talk about Meslon.
Oh, yeah. Makes sense. Okay. Yeah. The short answer of most of this is yes. PMax is a black box. It doesn't give you any of the details. It doesn't show you where you showed. It doesn't do any of that kind of stuff. And so you do want to make sure you're leveraging your brand. There's a brand area in the settings where you can basically verify your brand, set up a brand keyword element, and then you can use that brand variable to exclude brand from showing up in PMax, especially on search. This has been a big challenge with Meslin, because Meslin has their main brand and they have a secondary brand, which is Meslin Warehouse, which is only the discount or the it's like think about Nordstrom versus Nordstrom Rack, right? They're still new products. They're still the good quality products. They're just meant to be in the outlet, right? And so we've had to really focus on brand exclusion for Meslin by using the brand verification and then excluding anything that was just Meslin from our PMax campaigns, because we were having too many times under Meslin's keywords, we'd have Meslin Warehouse show. And from a brand perspective standpoint, that's a huge issue, right? We don't want to have that happen. So that's something to be very aware of, is using brand to exclude. Then priority-wise, you want to make sure that as you're optimizing, shopping campaigns get high and low priority. PMax is all high priority. So there's no way to do like a PMax and then a low priority shopping. It's all PMax is going to cannibalize anything that you have from a shopping campaign standpoint. So unless you're using different SKUs, you have to do separate strategies. And I'm happy to talk to anybody about that. So what we did with Meslin, we've onboarded Meslin to Channable multiple years ago now. And one of the biggest benefits we had is Meslin had changed platforms. I don't know if you guys went, I'm not sure what the platform you went to and from, but they ended up on Shopify. And a lot of the fields were very much left over from the prior data feed system or the prior website system. So we got a massive feed of a ton of products. I think Meslin has somewhat around 7,000 SKUs or so, give or take. And trying to optimize those titles and descriptions one-to-one isn't possible. And the other thing we really wanted to leverage was using dynamic ad customizers like Channable offers to create ads where we had the price in the ad, so that for certain products, we could actually have the price dynamically update within the Google search campaign. So we had all these rules we created to identify where certain things were happening. So a couple of rules that we have, just an example, is we have a lot of situations where the description of the product would have code in the description. So there's actually a really great rule inside Channable where you can take the description and remove any code and just leave the text. That is an invaluable rule for any of the stuff we had running for Meslin. We also worked to create dynamic titles. Product names for Meslin's products are not necessarily like an Air Jordan, right? It's a lot more of a descriptive product. So you can see the 2 eyelet alligator derby, right? That's literally the product name. So trying to bring that product name into a situation where we can use that not only just descriptive, but as a title, we had to use dynamic fields. So we'd actually isolate the material, the alligator, the product, right? Alligator. What style is it? Is it a sport? Is it a luxury? Is it a slip-on? Is it a dress shoe? Is it a casual shoe? And we had to create certain fields that we could then dynamically populate into here. So as you build the rule inside Channable, we actually built alligator derby. We had a rule set up to grab it's all men's because they only sell men's products, but the size of the product dynamically from the feed. Take that size, take the overall, product material, the leather, and the casual versus non-casual, and then dynamically use those dynamic variables to build us a title that would be keyword rich, keyword dense, and descriptive to the client. We also did that on some products where we needed to not only create a description, but for the dynamic text ads on Google search, we needed to create headlines. We needed to create descriptions. We needed to create, actual, body copy, for example, on some of the Google search ads. We would use rules and take the dynamic elements of the feed to create those different pieces of writing, and then dynamically put the size, the qualities in there, which is really, really beneficial. The other thing we had is a lot of products that came over that were either discontinued, that were not able to be shown anymore. And so really working with Josh really in detail on old SKUs, what SKUs were no longer in style that were still in the system, what SKUs that would go to a 404 page. And so working with him to understand, from a naming convention, we used to have, XB 55555 was our old catalog. Our new catalog is 1S at 55555, right? There's like nomenclature that we have to look at to understand older, newer, right? Or even product names, like old product names. So you go through and you use a rule to say, all right, identify all this product ID that starts with 1XB. Everything in there, exclude, right? And you can do that in bulk. So we were able to take what originally started out as, I think Josh was like 30,000 SKUs we originally brought into Channable.
Yeah, quite a bit.
It was ridiculous. And most of those SKUs were out-of-date product lines that had just not been maintained on the previous system. So in order to get all that into Google and Facebook and Amazon, all within one feed, we had to really make sure the feed quality was understood. And so going in and cleaning up and making all those fields consistent, getting rid of products that didn't make sense, that's another huge element. And then also customizing our custom labels. Custom labels are a product feature that most people, I think, underutilize. So Josh and I had a really great conversation where we tried to understand like what it is we were trying to target, where are our priorities. And so we looked at everything for custom labels 0 through 4 and broke it out into different categories. So we looked at it like by tier. So high tier products, mid tier products, low tier products, products by value as far as the margin. So these products have a high profit margin, these products have a low profit margin, and these products have no profit margin. And things like, a $30 belt may not make sense to advertise when you have your ROAS targets as high as we do. So what we ended up doing was saying, you know what, we can use belts as an upsell product, but we're never going to hit our target AOV by selling belts through a paid model. So we were able to use custom labels to exclude or include certain products that we knew we did not want to advertise or we did want to advertise. And the nice thing is you can do remarketing for certain products, but not do prospecting for certain products. And you can use custom labels to really identify what those are and bring those variables in, which is really important. And the other thing is just really looking at cleanup. What attributes don't make sense? And you're looking through it and you're like, oh man, this just looks really weird. Or it's an old product description that doesn't make sense. So really going through and creating rules to recognize certain words, certain fields, certain metrics. We have a lot of things we actually brought over from your guys' old website, Josh. You had fields that no longer exist anymore. And so anywhere in the field, in the feed where those fields existed, we had to copy that field into the new version of that field. So we had to use dynamic text to copy a metric or a value and copy it over into the new field. So a lot of really interesting stuff going on there. Josh, any insights that you have as far as like some of the complexities when you guys did the site migration?
Yeah, I mean, just for some context, we moved from Magento over to Shopify. So the fields were very different things. Shopify does things one way, Magento did things a different way at the time. And really just kind of hitting on what Brian said is, the management of these products is very difficult when you have 30,000 SKUs. And really when it comes to utilizing Channable, cleanup is, this made it a lot easier by creating these custom rules, by being able to say, okay, these are old style numbers we no longer use. Anything that starts with this, we can just clear out. So definitely the 2 points to hit on is, the cleanup and the management of a brand like ours with so many different SKUs. We have shoes that come in 3 different materials, 3 different colors, and then you have those in 10 different sizes. So those SKUs really add up quickly. And to be able to manage all that through Channable is so much simpler because of rules, because of automations, things like that. And then the benefit to that, not just, product management and cleanup, but it also, as Brian mentioned, you don't want to have things like 2 eyelet alligator derby, men's size 9 alligator sport as your product title on your site. That's just, it's crazy. But working with Channable allows us to offer these flexibilities to really strengthen our ads, strengthen our presence where it needs to be, and create rules such as Brian mentioned with our tiers for products. Some of our alligator shoes are at a higher price point compared to some of our leather shoes, or as Brian mentioned, lower price products don't really, for example, we sell shoelaces for $6. So, you're not really going to cover your return on $6 shoelaces. So those are things that we're able to utilize in Channable to really strengthen where we want to be for our KPIs.
Excellent.
That's great.
Yeah, really good feedback across the board. We've got about 5 minutes left here. I'll put this up and you guys can wrap up. This is kind of our leaving slide. We don't have to walk through it. But just another 5 minutes for Q&A. I guess before we do that, there is a breakout session that, if you're interested in learning more about Channable, Jake Crusade is there. So you can jump into that breakout session now. You can also get a free trial on our website, channable.com, where you can load up all of your products for free, and you can actually get an optimization score. And the other exciting thing, and then we'll get to the questions, is that Brian's also offered to do some free audits for some of you. So if you're interested in that, just pop in the chat here or reach out to Brian directly, and he'll work on doing a free audit for, I think, what we said about 10 you could probably squeeze in, Brian.
Yeah.
Okay. As well. So let us know about that. So yeah, let's get to the Q&A. John, great comment for Brian. I could listen to him for hours as well. In fact, I've been on with him for 2 hours and I'm still interested.
Yeah, you have been
as well. But any other questions that you guys have, or any closing comments from the crew here?
So yeah, there's a lot of really good questions in here. I think I'll approach this slide as well as trying to answer some of the questions a little bit here and there. I would say one of the best resources to get better at feed optimization is actually going through the Channable Academy. Their learning academy is very, very good. I would say there's a lot of things in there that you may not realize you can do from a calculated field or calculated metric, because you can do a lot of really cool custom calculations that, literally create different margin rules or create different calculations in Channable. Also, Channable's whole position is data feeds, right? So they're going to help you understand how you can make, how do I say this correctly? How do you make the best of what you have available to you, right? How can you optimize your feed to a point where it's going to make Google happy? And how you make Google happy is kind of trial and error, unfortunately. You have to, and I don't recommend testing with PMax, because as you all know, there's no ability for us to look at the keywords in a PMax campaign. So don't fool yourself. Make sure you run an actual shopping ad campaign. If you're trying to do any kind of fishing or any kind of harvesting of keywords, run standard shopping, because you're going to very quickly understand what it is that you have available to you. And if you make one title, right, see your keywords, take 2 weeks, run a different title, see what your keywords change, you're going to get a really clear picture of what that looks like. So that plays into option 1, where it's like, hey, no keyword targeting, use your titles and descriptions. Really, really important to make sure that those keywords and descriptions are tested, optimized, and brought out to a point where they're very descriptive. Not all products need to be included. This is going back to Esben's question about the 50% margin being flawed. Sure, this is something that I've come to grips with a lot. We have brands that we've worked with that are dog toys, right? Those dog toy brands have a $4 product where it's a stuffy, right? And you have to look at your AOV and your lifetime value. If your product cannot be sold in a way where your what's called tacos in the Amazon world, your total advertising cost of sale, if that tacos is not around the 12 to 15% for your cost of advertising, it may not be profitable for you to do ads for that product. And that's just the harsh truth and the harsh reality of it. I can tell you, as a business owner, I own a Turkish towel company. My margin is not high enough for me to actually advertise, because I have to pay for shipping, I have to pay for all the storage, and it's just one of those things where the margin isn't high enough. I can't justify shopping and still make the margin I need to from a taco standpoint. So you do have to be very aware of what your lifetime value is, what your product value is. Because yeah, if you sell a $4 product on Amazon or on Google Ads and it costs you $1 to sell it and you made $3, great. But the chances of you selling that for $1 and making that $3 back on such a low margin product or low value product, it just isn't going to work. I mean, I don't mean to be rude, but you're wasting your money. You need to make sure your product has enough LTV, doesn't become unvaluable to you after a short period of time. You need to make sure they're going to come back 7, 8, 9, 10 times. What is the value of the product versus what is the value of the client? Because you may have a loss leader on your hands where you don't make money on the first sale, but you make money because that client is in your email list, and now you can sell, 35% of your revenue could come from email, right? That's a pretty good common standard. So don't list every product. Really review your LTV, understand your margins before you list those products. Because if you're going to run ads to them, you may not realize it, but you may be wasting money, or you may be costing yourself money because you're paying too much. Availability, don't list unavailable items. Yeah, Google won't allow products that are out of date or out of stock. But if you have an issue where your Google doesn't see that your product's out of stock, or your shopping cart doesn't say it's out of stock, but you end up having it be out of stock on your back end, that could cause all sorts of issues from a customer service standard. Custom labels, to your point earlier about the margins, you have 4 different custom labels. You can have price listed. So I would call it price buckets in tier 1, and then next margin. And if your pricing isn't high enough, like you don't want to have a margin focused bid strategy on products that are $4, but you might want to have a margin focused bid strategy on a product that's $1,000, right? If you have a 50% margin on a $1,000 product, you can have a high enough tacos where you can spend a little bit of money to really still make your money back. So you do have to be mindful of your product. Looking at the details of how you leverage priority levels, run standard shopping campaigns with high, medium, and low priority. Anything that's high priority on a standard shopping is going to get prioritized. Low priority is going to be something where you have the opportunity there to show it. If you have separate SKUs or G10s, you can do separate strategies with PMax and shopping where these products will show and then these products will show. But your priority level in the shopping campaign would usually be lower because you're going to end up having your inventory shown on Google. PMax is going to take priority over what you have on Google Shopping. But the fact you have to have them separated into 2 different SKUs or different product areas. Again, isolate your PMax and your shopping. They will cannibalize each other, guaranteed. And then make sure you're understanding your pricing strategy. If you're coming to the table with $1,000 shoe and you're not considered a luxury product and everybody else is looking at $30 Nikes, you're in the wrong category, right? Like with Meslin, we do not go after Nike. We do not go after Adidas. It's a waste of our money. We don't go after just shoes or slip-ons, right? It doesn't make sense. But alligator loafer slip-ons are going to be in the product category where it makes sense. And then especially looking down at your product quality or your image quality, if you have everything running correctly, your products look great, you can upload those products into your data feed, have a couple of different options, 2 or 3 different variables, and then use the new tools that Google has. Or Channable also has some new images that you have the ability to do dynamic image editing, where you have the ability to update your images through the Channable service as well. That gives you a good opportunity to really kind of maximize that. The thing about PMax is you're not going to know that it charged you for display. It's not going to tell you. There's no way to see whether it was display or search or shopping. You can tell because your click-through rates are going to be shit, and so are your conversion rates, because they're always going to be lower on display versus search versus shopping. But there is no breakout that shows you a report of your breakout by network. So if you're saying it charged you 18 grand for PMax for display only, I'd be really curious where you got that report, because there's no transparency that PMax offers to that limit. So very interesting comment there, because that is not a visible field that we have available.
Interesting. We're up to 5 audits so far, if you're keeping track in the chat. So you got some work to do after this, Brian, but
love it
as well. We do have a couple extra minutes that we've been allotted as the questions go in. Kind of any parting thoughts, Josh, on your side, kind of coming from the brand side, and what marketers can look for, and then maybe sharing a little bit about kind of what you look for in your agency partner, because it seems like you and Brian have built a really strong relationship that's allowing you to kind of execute well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've been with Meslin for 8 years, been working with Brian for almost half of that. So, Brian and his agency, for those of you, there's few audits left. I highly recommend it. He hasn't steered us wrong yet. So please, if you get a chance, utilize his audit. He has a great mind, and again, we've had a great relationship with him and his team. So highly encourage that. But
Appreciate that, buddy.
yeah, I mean, Brian, it's important to understand that your agency and you are on the same page. Brian and I have a great connection, and it's coincidentally we both live in Las Vegas. But it's important that your agency understands just as much. Brian has a lot of insights on upcoming trends. His knowledge on PMAX and these Google campaigns has helped us severely. Him being able to pivot from PMAX to shopping when we see, the KPIs fluctuate, really helps us out. Something else to kind of stress on the importance of that Brian was aware of is we do sell on a B2B level as well. So exposure when it comes to our competitors is very important because we do sell to brands like Nordstrom. We sell to a lot of independent brands. So if we are not on top of our shopping campaigns and kind of just focusing on a lot more display or PMAX, we tend to see the B2B side of our business kind of cannibalize our e-commerce because they're taking up the shopping campaigns, those types of things. So it's great that Brian has that understanding, can catch those things for us because, not all of us are experts, but he definitely has our best interests in mind. So definitely going to stress when looking for an agency, you definitely want to make sure you're in line and that you can have, honest conversations and flexibility about everything as Brian does with us. So really, really important to note there.
And Search Logic is the agency that I represent. Yeah, question on that.
Yeah, Search Logic, and the details will be, I think, after this. We'll, you get a copy of the actual presentation and the video, and all of our contact details will be there. And Jake's just put his URL there in the contact form as well.
And there are people who don't need agency help; they just need like feed help. And so that's where I come in with Smart Tech, and I actually work as a certified reseller with Channable under the Smart Tech brand. And at Smart Tech, we do specialize in marketing technology. So the conversion tracking questions, the GA4 questions, any of those kind of things, that's what we do through Smart Tech specifically, is kind of the stuff that everyone else hates. Consultations through Smart Tech specifically. If it's running paid media and, kind of managing that, Search Logic is the brand that I would work under. But if it's consulting, if it's advising, that would be under the Smart Tech brand, which I'm the CEO of.
Awesome. Great. Well, Brian and Josh, thank you so much for joining us today. This has been a really insightful conversation. I always learn a lot when I talk to the two of you, so I appreciate it. Again, for those of you who spent time with us, thank you for spending the time with us. All of our contact details are available there on screen. Link us in, reach out to us, and looking forward to staying connected in the future. And I'll hand it back over to you, Lauren, to close everything out officially.
Thanks, Ben. It's been a pleasure sitting back and letting you moderate the panel. And I, just like a lot of the commenters, I could sit back and listen to you, Brian, for 2 hours.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it.
Next time we'll book this for a half of a day.
Next time I won't have the flu, so I will sound better and more audible.
Exactly. Yeah, and it's pretty impressive that you've been doing this with the flu. So I can't wait till next time. Thanks again. Really appreciated it. Our next SEJ webinar is going to be held on May 15th. Same bat time, same bat channel, 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 p.m. PST. We're going to have Ben Childs and Jordan Gibson from Digital Reach discussing holistic B2B digital strategy drives, how that drives a pipeline. So please chime in and be sure to register for our next SEJ webinar. And again, Ben, Brian, and Josh, thank you so much. Really enjoyed
Thanks for having us
today. Going to look into Google Merchant Center next, and then also a bit into these alligator shoes as well. Found something my size, so following up on that end. Anyway,
awesome,
great guys. Thank you very much. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, everybody. Take care.
Have a great day.